Funkadelic from 1970. There was a time when the earth became seriously unfunky, but the prophet Dr. Funkenstein came to our rescue. He came to rescue us all from a life of being square and unhip. Journeying out to the pyramids of Egypt, he managed to find the secret of funk and came back to funk us all up with his magic bop gun, a magical weapon which could turn on even the most seriously unhip. Remember the words of the good doctor: free your mind and your ass will follow. These are the doctrines of Funkadelic's leader, George Clinton. But behind all the silliness, all the wackiness, George had some very serious and important messages, political and social, and they were all delivered, all wrapped up in the language of the street. Back in the 60s, George had formed the Parliaments. They were a doo-wop group. Now the group had a bunch of hit singles. They were described as sounding like a drunk version of the Temptations. But that didn't quite sit well with a free spirit like George. Back then, we were all still into Motown. We were very much responding to their movements. Somewhere along the way, it became clear to me that we had a strong group of players, a strong group of musicians who were to us what the Funk Brothers were to Motown. Then a few things happened. A dispute with his record company prevented George from using the name The Parliaments. So what did he do? What did a visionary like George Clinton do? He moved the Parliament's backing band up front and the singers now becoming backup vocalists. And he decided to go for a completely new approach. He fused the soul influences of Motown, the rhythm and blues roots of the original Parliaments, the funk, the emerging funk of James Brown, and the acid rock of Jimi Hendrix. It wasn't black music, but it wasn't white either. George Clinton. I think I had the name first. Everyone knew it felt right though. White rock groups had done the blues, and we wanted to head back in the other direction. We wanted to be a black group, playing the loudest, funkiest combinations of psychedelic rock and thunderous rhythm and blues. So you had the original Parliament singers, Clinton, Ray Davies, Fuzzy Haskins, Calvin Simon and Grady Thomas. On lead guitar you had the legend Eddie Hazel, who decorated the music with his melting, flowing, howling, weeping guitar solos, which seemed to be dredged up from his very soul. Tall Ross on rhythm guitar, who like the Dead's Bob Weir was forever searching, seeking for the right rhythm, the right parts to keep the boat afloat. You had Billy Bass Nelson and Tiki Forward on drums. Billy and Tiki, once they got into the groove, and the groove was king with his band. Nothing could shake them out of it. They just kept it down, holding it all together. Funkadelic's first album from 1970 was like a musical nuclear bomb going off. Remember, at this time, black music was mainly Motown and James Brown. It was all well presented, all suits and dance routines. No one had heard anything like Funkadelic. It's probably the most psychedelic album I've ever heard. Yes, it has hints of classic soul, rhythm and blues and straight blues, but they kind of bubble out of this primeval, psychedelic, funky swamp. And once that band get in the groove, they lock it down real tight. All the 7 tracks have the feel of extended jams, but don't let that put you off. Back in the late 60s, the early 70s, a lot of bands would jam, extended improvisations, and a lot of it would, let's be honest, bore the pants off you, unless the band were supreme musicians. But the magic of Funkadelic is once they got that groove going, that was the foundation, and from that they would bounce off it, they would riff off it, they would vibe off it, whether through guitar, keyboards, bass, drums, single vocals, harmony vocals. The looseness of it all is just an illusion. In reality, these guys were right on it. They were, as I said, supreme musicians. Track 1. Mummy, what's a Funkadelic? If you will suck my soul, I will lick your funky emotions. Part Mississippi Blues, part James Brown, part Hendrix, and Dr. Funkenstein's acid drenched vocals. By the way, my name is Funk. I am not of your world. Let me kiss your mind. Release all these feelings. We don't need no words. Marvin might have suggested let's get it on, and Jimmy had his wild thing, but George sounds like he's getting it on right there in the studio. I Bet You was written by Clinton way back in 1966 and recorded by Teresa Lindsay. The Jackson 5 also recorded a version of it. It starts off here very much as a traditional soul song. It also boasts some wonderful vocal interplay between the various singers on display here, but it has an edge. There's a weirdness there. And at 2 minutes in, here come these strange, otherworldly backing vocals, and they lead us in to Eddie Hazel's lysergic guitar solo. Ross Nelson and Tiki Forward driving the song forward. There's hints of magic, voodoo, ghosts in the night. Funkadelic in their early days would tour with bands like Iggy and the Stooges, the MC5, Vanilla Fudge. You know, George Clinton watched, observed and absorbed. He absorbed it all. He took out the raw energy and the craziness of the Stooges and the MC5 and the heaviness of the Fudge and blended it all in to the Funkadelic sound. Things get even weirder on the track Music for My Mother. Man, I was in a place called Keep Running, Mississippi one time, and I heard someone on my way by. Sounded a little something like raw funk to me, so I slowed down and I took a listen. And this is all I could hear, baby. Now in comes a mesmerizing, hypnotic chant that seems more suited to the African Congo than Detroit. It got so good to me, man, that I stopped running. My feet were tired anyhow. So I reached in my inside pocket and I got my harp out. Sit down by that beat up old railroad train and get myself a little of that old funky thing. Things get even more surreal as the harmonica solo here is actually one of the band, I think it's either Clinton or Hazel, imitating the harmonica with his voice. Like I said, it's hypnotic and totally mesmerizing. Can you feel what I mean? This is what you call way back yonder funk. Sure is. It's totally irresistible, and I dare you not to sing along. The wonderful Rolling Stone magazine said at the time, who needs this shit? I do, and I never want this album to end. Back in the day, not many people got it, and Funkadelic, the album, was kind of ignored. But the band's popularity grew and grew and grew. Around this time, Clinton also restarted Parliament, which was basically the same lineup as Funkadelic. But originally, Parliament were more focused on rhythm and blues, though as the 70s passed, it was almost impossible to tell them apart. The album Funkadelic is a monster of a record. 7 classic tracks you can dive into, and every time you listen, I guarantee you'll hear something new. I honestly can't recommend this album highly enough. It's a must-have record. So thank you for listening. Please give us a like for the video. Please subscribe to the channel. But most importantly, stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.